Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Presenting travel writer and sacred mysterious site hunter, Teal Gray.
Thank you for joining us tonight on Para Mysteries. We are coming to you live on WBHM-DB radio out of Birmingham, Alabama. I'm your host, Teal Gray. I'm a best-selling Texas author, sacred site traveler, and to the surprise of some, since I'm an intuitive medium, I'm a doubly ordained non-denominational minister. So that's something for you to wrap your head around. Now, today is November 11th, and vibrationally, this is a very powerful day due to the fact that it is the 11th day of the 11th month. And for some people, even waking up to the number on their clock or their watch, something this 1111 or 1111 of a date, holds a special spiritual significance, as it is believed to be the number of a spiritual awakening. Something powerful is going to happen, a new beginning in your life. And when you frequently see 1111 on the clock, or you're drawn to this number of 1111, it often indicates that an upcoming change or awakening is on the horizon for you. Angels, spirit guides, and the universe also use numbers as a way to connect and communicate with you. So 1111 is commonly used by divine beings to help point you in the right direction and to illuminate that path ahead of you. So in numerology, the number indicates, again, new beginnings. And when there's a series of ones, like today, November 11th, it creates a powerful energy for that day. It especially allows on this day to have an awakening to your new potential. So you might want to meditate a bit tonight, stand out underneath the night sky, just tune in to what is on the horizon for you, because this is a powerful time to make changes in your life, set new intentions, dig in deeper, and uncover that truth, because it's out there for you. It's always trying to tell you what's happening. And grab onto those new awakenings, get that information, and always go for the highest vibration, the highest, best possible option for your life. And I wish you every blessing in that. Now, tonight, I am having a very special guest. I got to tell you, I'm a little starstruck. He's so fascinating. We have author John Herloski. He is author of A Sorcerer's Apprentice, A Skeptic's Journey into the CIA's Project Stargate. We'll be talking to him tonight about remote viewing, and I'm so thrilled to have you on tonight. Welcome to the show, John.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Well, I tell you, I'm thrilled. And for anybody who might not be familiar, could you just tell us a bit what remote viewing is and what the CIA's Project Stargate? That's quite something that you were involved with. So, if you don't mind, we'll start just there with what actually is remote viewing.
Well, remote viewing is actually a form of a administrative tool. It's not really psychic functioning. A lot of people have this impression that remote viewing is psychic functioning, but it's not in the actuality. They're two separate things. During the early 70s, when the United States intelligence services were interested in finding out whether ESP could be used as an intelligence gathering asset, they hired a well-known psychic to bring it under the realm of scientific plausibility. And so Ingo Swann, the name of the gentleman who was instrumental in creating remote viewing, put together a methodology and a protocol that could be followed using a person's innate psychic ability. So the terms, although many people tend to use them synonymously, are not exactly the same. You have an innate psychic ability, also known as ESP or clairvoyance or psi, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be taught remote viewing, because remote viewing is just simply an administrative tool to collect and catalog and characterize your impressions during a session.
Mm-hmm.
It was discovered during this period of time that most people have some psychic ability. Some have a lot, and some don't have a lot.
Yeah.
Put it simply, it's basically just like any other human ability. Some people are blessed with a lot, and some people aren't. It follows a bell-shaped curve. So if, let's say, you were one of the ones who didn't have a lot of psychic ability, learning remote viewing isn't going to help you become psychic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's a separate
It's just
tool.
used it helps the person with psychic ability to be able to utilize his talent in a more rigorous, methodological manner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
So back in the 70s, as I stated, the CIA started a program with Ingo Swann, and they created this methodology called controlled remote viewing. And it was utilized during the 25-year
The Project Stargate time?
period. Period that Stargate was extant. And they produced a number of really solid intelligence coups using it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I was a skeptic. I had never had a psychic experience in my life. So prior to reading Dave Morehouse's book, Psychic Warrior, for me, ESP was just something that was, if it did exist, it was something that was very special and not really amenable to control.
Mm-hmm.
But after reading Dr. Morehouse's book, I was totally shocked to find out that there was a program called Stargate where they actually taught people to be psychic using this ability, this protocol, and they used it in intelligence gathering.
Mm-hmm.
So back in 1999, I started taking classes from Dr. Morehouse and then a number of other of the Stargate remote viewers, and I went operational in 2003.
Wow, it's fascinating. And you came from such a very scientific background. You majored in math and engineering and went on to become a police officer and even taught at police academy. Then, of course, Project Stargate. That's quite a journey that you went on, and it must have been something for you to have such a logical, mindset to then have experiences that make you say, well, hey, there's something to this. That's quite an awakening, I'm sure.
Oh, it was one of the most amazing times of my life. To be able to encompass what was happening to me in larger terms of being caught between my past and my future, and my whole worldview, my belief system challenged in such a way. It was quite a struggle for me, which is depicted in my book. And it produced a number of very interesting episodes.
I can't even imagine, honestly. I mean, it's something. And one thing, if I remember it right, as I understand it, in the remote viewing, when they're teaching you this and everything, they're not able to say, hey, we want you to do a remote viewing of the Great Pyramids, for example. So they have to keep you completely in the dark about what you're viewing. So i.e. to get the best results and unconvoluted. So how do you point the remote viewer to a proper target without being able to give any real information for them?
That's some of the real magic behind remote viewing, because remote viewers always work in the dark, meaning they have no idea what the target is. They're simply given a set of what are called encrypted coordinates, which are simply a set of randomly chosen numbers to concentrate on. And that stands for the concept of the target in the unconscious mind. And the theory goes is that the unconscious mind has access to the collective unconscious and all knowledge. And so by concentrating on that number, you are linked to the information that the tasker wants, because the unconscious knows what the tasker wants.
You don't need
as
to
a remote viewer are not consciously aware of what it is. So remote viewers always work in the blind.
Yeah. It's really fascinating, because now quite recently, scientists have come out and started speaking about that now. But of course, this is, decades from back in the day, about this consciousness that, now they're saying, oh, okay, we used to think that was all woo-woo stuff, but actually there is a greater collective consciousness that is hardwired in. You're part of that ability to access that. So that's makes perfect sense, what you're saying, but at the same time, it's just a lot to wrap your head around. And I'm sure being in that program is, that's quite something. Are there any traits or personality traits or something that you look for or that they look for in a person to become a remote viewer?
Most of the people who were involved in the program were found to be intelligent, had a sense of artistry, were that would be right brain thinkers, those who tend to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And enjoyed music.
Yeah, that's interesting. The music, I've heard other people speak about the fact that music and within music, it brings about color and it taps into vibrational energy. And I wonder if the music is actually quite key to some of this higher brain activity and thinking. Maybe so. I hadn't thought about the music
could
before.
Very well be. Very well be. I mean, music is nothing more than a form of mathematical logic. That's expressed in vibrational tones.
I guess it all comes down to math, doesn't it? At the end.
Yeah.
Well, now, you've experienced something called bilocation during a remote viewing session. And I've heard of shaman, yogi, masters bilocating. And when they do so, there are some times that followers have said they could actually see them. Could you tell us a little bit about bilocation and your experience with that?
Sure. Well, bilocation is an aspect of remote viewing that is, it's a double-edged sword in terms of intelligence gathering. You have to remember that remote viewing was created with the idea behind it of gathering intelligence. Okay, so that's its primary mission for remote viewers. Okay, to gather intelligence on something. So what does happen occasionally is the viewer becomes so, how can I put this? Becomes so connected to the target that they begin to experience physical manifestations as if they were there at the target site. So as if, let's say I was viewing something, let's say up in the Arctic, I would start feeling very cold.
Okay.
And I would start feeling like I was
Immersed
in a
in
refrigerator or something
atmosphere.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you were in, let's say, a very hot environment, you'd start sweating and feeling like your temperature had risen. And visually, it can become quite authentic. You see things and hear things and smell things just as if you were there at the target, just as clear as you were sitting right next to it.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
The only problem with that is that the viewer tends to get caught up in the excitement of being almost in two places at once. And if the session is monitored, which in most intelligence cases it is, done by another experienced remote viewer who is monitoring the session, he will have to break them out of that bilocation in order to bring them back to what they were designed to be doing, which is, of course, gathering intelligence. But when I worked with Dave Morehouse in a process called extended remote viewing, bilocations became quite the norm for me. And being so used to being in that situation, I found it easier to record my impressions than someone with less experience in dealing with bilocation, which might have to be pulled out of it in order to bring them back to gathering information again, instead of just experiencing what was going on. It's kind of like the movie Inception, if you've seen that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Where you get so caught up in the dream that it becomes real. And in fact, one of the original remote viewers, Joe McMonagle, was experimenting with Dr. Ed May with combining lucid dreaming with remote viewing. And they found that the movie was extremely accurate in predicting what they experienced under those circumstances.
Mm-hmm. A bit of co-creation, I guess, in that.
So a bilocation is a fascinating part of remote viewing. Once you've experienced it, you want more, but you have to also understand that that in doing so, it can both help, but it can also hinder your session, depending on how much you get caught up into it.
Is that because maybe then once you're caught up into it, rather than just observing and reporting, that you then go into your own personal experiences and kind of rabbit trail off?
Yeah, that's basically what it comes down to. If you're not careful, a bilocation can bring you out of target and onto something that's entirely different that has nothing to do with the target.
Gotcha. Well, some people have expressed, like the thought, well, is it possible to kind of lose yourself out there? Are there people that are with you that try to keep you sort of tethered to the coming back reality, or is that such a thing that somebody could be lost in a deep remote viewing session or bilocation?
It's possible in a bilocation that you could get really caught up so much into it that you lose track of what you're doing and where you are. When Joe and Ed were working on lucid dreaming combined with remote viewing, they found that was the case. That you could wind up dreaming a situation where you thought you were back in reality, and when you got up and reached for the doorknob, your hand went through the door.
Yeah.
And so you had to realize that you were still in the inception. You weren't in reality yet. And he said it was quite disorienting.
Now,
there's less problem of that with remote viewing, because remote viewing has mechanisms to deal with bilocation.
Okay.
So that's less of a problem with remote viewing than it is in something like what they were experimenting with.
By location. I don't know if it's the same thing as a tool that would be used in this that I've heard of for some other things, to where somebody would have, let's say, an apple sitting on the desk or a clock at a certain time, and they would know that would be a signal to them if they were in or out of reality. Is that something plausible to what they would have as a tool?
I'm not real familiar. I only talked with Joe McMonagle for an hour or so on what he was up to, and we discussed some of the issues behind using remote viewing with lucid dreaming. So I don't know if they had something along those lines, like an anchor, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
Them.
To have
I would have to ask him.
Yeah, I just was curious about that. Well, we're going to have to take a break, just a short break, to hear from some of our sponsors, but we will be right back, everyone. So if you'll hang tight, we'll be right back with John Herloski. Thanks so much.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate Magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the world wide web of weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back to Paramysteries. I'm your host, Teal Gray. We are coming to you live on WBHM-DB Radio out of Birmingham, Alabama. We are graced with none other than my special guest, John Herloski. He has been talking to us about remote viewing, bilocation, amazing subject material. So, John, one thing we were talking before at break of by location and your time as a remote viewer. These things had to be life-changing for you. How did your life sort of feel from, your existence before? Is it sort of like, as they say, BC before these happens and after?
Really?
Yeah.
Very much so. I mean, that was the most incredible time of my entire life. I mean, all of the things that I've seen and done, the time that I spent learning remote viewing was the greatest time of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the things that I've learned, things that I've done, were just amazing. It's interesting that although the program was discontinued, Stargate, back in 1995, I believe, if I remember correctly, there's still a lot of interest in remote viewing today. And remote viewing does have legitimacy even today.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, my second extended remote viewing session was on Mars. We were given the target as the Mars Sojourner rover.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was observing on Mars at the time, I was bilocated, and I was shivering cold, and I was having a hard time breathing. I observed a dust devil, or what appeared to be a dust devil to me. But the interesting thing about that was that I saw little tiny, like fireflies or shining motes swirling up like some sort of electrical energy flowing up into the funnel of the dust devil.
Mm.
And I wrote that down. Now, after the session, I had written all this up and everything, I went online and looked up dust devils on Mars. And they had only a single picture of one taken from orbit, and they had virtually no information on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering, why would I see this like energy flowing up into the dust devil? And I couldn't reconcile myself to what I had observed to what we knew about dust devils.
Uh-huh.
So about 9 months later, I was online, and just for the heck of it, I pulled up dust devils, Martian dust devils,
Mm-hmm.
and an article popped up from the University of Arizona, and they were doing research for NASA on terrestrial dust devils as compared to the ones on Mars. The ones on Mars are much, much larger because there's less gravity and the atmosphere is much thinner. So, but they wanted to get an idea of what astronauts on Mars might encounter if they encounter a Martian dust devil compared to the ones that we had here on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that dust devils, because they pull dust up into the sky and the dust rubs against each other, it creates a static charge. And the heavier particles stay down low in the dust devil.
Mm-hmm.
And the lighter ones get pulled up high, causing a separation of charges. And you can wind up with some really high-level static charges in a dust devil. And it suddenly hit me, that's what I was seeing.
Yeah.
The electrical charges being separated in the funnel. And that's one of the things about remote viewing that is interesting, in that you can see things that your normal eyes can't. For instance, you can see radiation, like X-rays, or in this case, electrical charges.
Right. That normally your human eye wouldn't pick up.
Right. The human eyes would not see.
That's interesting.
And so,
because you're in this connection of this higher consciousness,
mm-hmm.
It's beyond your physical limitations.
Yes. In fact, there were sessions when Joe McMonagle was viewing a Chinese nuclear weapon, and he saw the nuclear material as giving off green light. That's the way his consciousness saw the energy package inside the bomb. He saw it as a green light emanating from these spheres.
Wow,
so
that's
it's interesting that your brain is able to, after sufficient experience, can resolve different forms of information coming in and make it such that you can experience it.
Beyond what
visually.
you've ever, had the capacity, the knowledge that's come to you in your lifetime. It's just beyond what we even know about a subject, as you say. Wow.
Right. So, I mean, this information had not been known at the time when I had done my session on Mars.
Right.
It was only discovered 9 months later.
That's
so
amazing.
In this way, remote viewers can get information about things that would not be known at that time on other planets, for instance.
That has to feel, I don't even have the verbiage for it. Surreal is maybe a limited term, but for your own self, as you kept having these, realizations of, wow, no, this is happening. This is real. And then even 9 months later after that, having that connection, what was that like for you?
I mean, to me, when I read that article online, I was just floored. I just completely floored that I had knowledge of what they had just discovered 9 months previous.
Later. Yeah. Wow.
I mean, that to me was just mind blowing. And I still recall the session to this day, standing there on the surface of Mars, although I didn't know it at the time, that's what the target was. I didn't know where I was. In fact, I thought I was in Death Valley.
Oh, okay.
Because there was, when I looked out, when I landed on target, and I looked out, and the mists of the matrix cleared away, I saw just rocks strewn out to the horizon. It was just weird. I mean, I'm thinking, Dave said this was going to be an interesting target, and I'm looking at like a rock garden. There's nothing but rocks and pebbles. I mean, it was boring as hell.
Yeah.
And I look out, and I'm seeing, and then something started to be a little strange, because the horizon looked foreshortened. And when I looked up, the sky was kind of like this light orange pinkish color. Okay, at the horizon. But when I looked up and it was daylight, the sky was black and I could see stars. And I'm like, what is going on here?
Very disorienting.
Yeah. And I was freezing cold. My hands were frozen. I was freezing cold. And you have to understand, I was in my ERV workstation, which was an inflatable mattress with a sleeping bag on it with a pillow, and I had earplugs in and an eye shield down to cut out all light. So I was effectively, in a sensory deprivation type of a deal. But I was comfortable when I first started the session.
It was climate
control. When I was there,
right?
When I was there on the target, I was ice cold and I was shivering. And that's what happens in a bilocation.
When you come back from that, in like that situation, are you, do you have the physical in your body cold? Do you feel cold to the touch, I guess I'm saying, when you came back? Or was it just?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
My hands were cold when I ended.
That's crazy.
And I came back. We came back from out of session. My fingers were cold.
Wow. Because, the mind is such a powerful thing. And I feel like we all know that we only use so much of it, but it's like this vast, unknown that we still keep learning and learning and learning about. And I have always believed and have heard stories where people not doing remote viewing or anything, but just in certain situations had believed so much that they were either going to freeze to death when that wasn't going to happen. A man was locked in an ice truck, but it was broken, and it wasn't producing any cold, but he was found not because of, suffocating or any of that. He died as if he froze because he so believed, and even wrote a note to his family, I'm freezing to death in this trailer I got locked in. And they opened the door.
The power of the mind is real. It's real. And that's what shamans have used for thousands of years in sympathetic magic. The belief that what they were telling the person was real. And the mind can take that and run with it. And it can be used for good in terms of healing somebody just by the power of the mind alone.
Yes.
Through belief. Or it can be used in a negative way and used to cause somebody to die.
Yeah.
Just from the power of their own belief.
Yeah.
Believing. So the mind is very powerful. There's no question about that. And
it
certainly was a case where it was illustrated to me in the most intense way.
Well, I have a question when you were describing going from, your, I would call your start point, whatever, off to your target. When you're going, is it always different, or is that matrix you speak of, is it sort of a darkness, or does it change depending on where they're sending you, or is it always sort of the same tunnel, so to speak, or same thing that you might view in your mind's eye as you're going? I mean, is it darkness and then boom, you're at some place, or do you always see, a white light taking you somewhere? Is it something that's ever standard to it, or is it always different?
Well, it depends upon the person. As far as I know, for myself, it's always the same. And it depends upon whether I'm using CRV, coordinate remote viewing, or ERV, extended remote viewing. Those are the two forms of remote viewing that I use.
Okay.
I was taught. In CRV, I close my eyes and I see images that pop up in front of my eyes. Okay, and they morph and they change, and then the deeper I get into session and into the stages of CRV, then they start becoming concrete images that I can relate to and understand
and tap into
on paper. But it's different in ERV. ERV takes place in a much deeper mindset, what people call a hypnagogic state. And in that, when I'm like that, then I see in the back of my head.
Okay.
I don't know how to put it.
No, I do. I understand. I see it in
the back of my mind.
Yeah.
I see things in the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And in extended remote viewing, you're taught to create a sanctuary.
Okay.
And your launching point is this sanctuary that you create for yourself. And then when you launch to the target, for me, it happens like, well, if you've ever seen the TV show Stargate SG-1,
yes,
the wormhole that they travel through, it's like that for me.
Okay.
I travel through this wormhole, and then I plop down onto the target, and the mists of the matrix around me, which are black with flashes of gray and purple, and almost like heat lightning in the background.
Okay.
And then as I calm down from the launch and get deeper into the mindset, then the mists clear away, and there's the target.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I don't know why that popped in my head. I just was curious about that. Now, remote viewing, of course, seems, I'm sure, to a lot of people like an idea, a tool that could be something to prevent attacks, possibly, or find missing people or something. Is that something that happens? Is that something that it could be a tool for? Although you were using it for certain purposes, is that something?
Yeah, I mean, Joe McMoneagle went on Japanese television and over a period of, I believe it was 6 months, found a number of people, which was filmed by Japanese television by using remote viewing techniques.
Wow.
And I myself have used it in an operational sense when using it for MIA POW issues.
Oh, okay.
Some of the work operational work that I did.
Okay. Well, that's fascinating.
And,
do you think that they don't, it's more common knowledge, like it's not commonly known just because of sort of maybe the American mindset of, having to have everything be so tangibly provable? Or, I mean, although I would think even remote viewing, when you bring, here's the missing person, or here's the target, there it is. I mean, you would think that would be sufficient, although it's not for somebody who needs more. I suppose that's never going to be enough. But do you think that sort of prejudice towards anything that might be psychic or deemed beyond what they can put in a box, do you think that's why we're not farther along with this?
Well, that's part of the problem. Remote viewing is probably at the same level as Franklin was with electricity. We know it works. We know it works. Okay, the statistical evidence is uncompromising and overwhelming for the existence of the phenomenon. Even some of the most staunchest disbelievers in the program admitted that it was a real phenomenon. Mm-hmm. And now only the ones who have just an absolute mindset against it, regardless of whatever scientific proof you can put up, they're not going to buy it. Okay. Yeah. Those are those people out there. You can't deal with them. That's their belief system. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. But it is a legitimate realm of investigation. I mean, it's something that should be followed up on and more experimentation done with it. And hopefully we'll be able to find what mechanism is being utilized in psychic ability. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's our biggest problem right now. We don't have a physical mechanism that can allow for the ability to see persons, places, objects, or events distant in space and time or shielded from normal observation by the 5 regular senses, modes of perception.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, we just don't have a mechanism that we can figure out. I mean, there have been a number of ideas put forth, but nothing at present has been found to be
something we could concrete, I guess, enough.
Yeah, something concrete.
Yeah.
That can be shown as the mechanism for psychic ability. We just don't have one right now. I have some ideas regarding it, and a number of other scientists have some ideas. Some might be quantum in nature. I tend to think of it more in terms of a holographic theory.
Oh.
A holographic theory would give you a scientific explanation that would match all of the experiences that remote viewers have.
That's interesting. Let me put a pin in it right there. We're going to come back. We have to take a quick break from our sponsors, but when we come back, we'll tap into that with you a bit, and then we will talk to Susan Hill and see what she has for us on this Veterans Day. We'll be right back, everybody. Thank you.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the World Wide Web of Weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Then. You say we're what, 5? Thank you for joining us tonight. We have been having an amazing chat with John Herloski about remote viewing, and we're back with him now on Para Mysteries. I'm your host, Teal Gray. We are coming to you live on WBHM-DB radio out of Birmingham, Alabama. Now, right before we went to our last break, John, you were saying that you sort of saw this as maybe a possibility and a holographic connection. If I wanted to let you finish your thought on that before we have to end our chat.
Well, part of the problem is that remote viewing seems to have no limitations. Remote viewing, you can view things in the past. You can also view possible futures. It also appears to violate Einstein's special relativity prohibition against information traveling faster than light. When I was doing my Mars session, for instance, Mars at that time was in the neighborhood of 40 million miles away, and it would take light approximately 12 to 15 minutes, if I remember correctly, at that distance to get there, and then another 12 to 15 minutes to get back. Yet I received information instantaneously. And that theoretically is not possible
and yet it happened.
Relativity.
Right.
Okay,
right.
So we have this problem where this seeming inconsistency occurs.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take a holographic view, then information based on a holographic universe would be available instantaneously, because every small local area of a global sized hologram has all of the information that the whole contains. Mm-hmm. That's why you can break a hologram and you still have the same image on it.
Gotcha.
On the piece that you do on the larger piece. Okay?
Uh-huh.
The only difference is the fidelity. The fidelity of the image is going to be degraded. Okay. Gotcha. And that matches what remote viewers see, because by and large, it's difficult to get a signal. the signal morphs and changes and is degraded, like trying to see an image through a badly tuned television set.
Got you.
Except during a bilocation, in which case the fidelity suddenly increases for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But all of this could be encompassed by a holographic form of information transfer.
Got you.
So that's my feeling.
It's fascinating, and I have to say, oh my gosh, our time has gone so quickly. I would beg to have you on yet again in the future, so we could talk further if you would be up for that. Because there's just, as you speak about it, of course, my mind comes up with so many more questions. If we could have you on again, we would absolutely love that.
Well, of course, Teal, for you.
I appreciate you. I love it. Thank you so much. Well, John, you've been a treasure, and we so thank you for your time, and we'll be in touch in the future to further this discussion. And now we're going to go to our special segment on Veterans Day with folklorist and local legend hunter, Susan Hill. Susan, thanks for coming on the show tonight.
Absolutely.
What do you have for us, girl?
Okay, so because of Veterans Day, I decided to look up some wartime legends, and I found quite a few interesting ones. So I'll start with World War I because, of course, that's a big one. But there was a really interesting thing I found about the Red Baron, which most of us have heard about if we know anything about history. But he and another German ace fighter pilot were flying over an area, and they allegedly found or saw a large silver flying object with orange flashing lights on it, and they engaged it and shot it down. And when it crashed into the forest below, both men have actually written that they saw two humanoid creatures climb out of the wreckage and escape into the woods.
Oh.
So there's a UFO one for you.
All right.
And that's actually documented. So
I love that when you have a bit of backup,
Exactly. Then there's also one from World War II. So there is a legend that goes around that Stalin actually ordered a biologist to actually create humanoid monkey hybrid soldiers.
I have heard that, Susan. I have had people who are legitimately, they're real in the field of military and in science, and of course they can't talk about it, but they talk about it, and I have heard that, and I believe it.
Exactly. So while I was researching this, it was really interesting. So there was actually a Russian biologist, and the last name was Ivanov. I'm probably butchering it as usual. Actually did make quite a few different animal hybrids and got a grant from the Soviet government to set up a lab in Africa. And he actually was starting to try and make human chimp hybrids. And the local government in Africa actually shut him down and shipped him back to Russia. And so that actually did happen. They were trying to.
If he wasn't successful, they wouldn't have stopped him.
Exactly. And so yeah, there is actually a little bit of truth to it. They were trying, they just were not successful, and it was stopped. And the Russian government apparently afterwards ran him out of the country with a bunch of other Russian scientists. Basically, we don't claim you and we don't know anything.
Yeah. Well, sometimes they have to say that,
Exactly. But my favorite one of all the ones I came across is actually from the Vietnam War. There were Marines in the Vietnam War that would actually find locals to help them kind of navigate through some of these dense forests. But of course, a lot of the locals didn't want to go into some of the darker areas of the forest because their superstition was that there are phantoms that live in the forest trees that they would call Ma, and they would warn the U.S. troops that reanimated corpses would come out of the trees and attack them. And of course, the Marines were like, y'all are crazy. This is just folklore. So, but actually, starting in 1965, American troops started actually making claims that they were seeing ghostly figures moving around through the trees. Some actually reported seeing fanged creatures with blacked out eyes, and that they would try and kidnap and grab and actually like bite some troops that were in the forest. And after a while, some of the top military brass decided that they were just going to bomb these certain forests where they were having it, and they just burned them up and burned them down so they'd stop losing troops in there to these supposed creatures.
Wow.
Yeah, so
very interesting.
A little bit of military legends, everybody.
Well, I appreciate that, and thank you for coming on again. As usual, we have Susan on with us every other week, so thank you, Susan Hill. And Susan, if you want to tell everybody about your books and how they can get.
So my books are, what I've got right now are the Urban Legends of the United States. I've just today actually released the second in the series, and they're all available on Amazon, and you can get the Kindle version as well. So yeah, go get your book.
All right. So we'll be hearing from Susan in a couple of weeks. I want to also remind everybody our special guest tonight was author John Herloski, and his book, A Sorcerer's Apprentice, A Skeptic's Journey into the CIA's Project Stargate, is available and for sale. An amazing book. So I would absolutely tell everybody listening tonight, go and get that book. Again, John Herloski, A Sorcerer's Apprentice, and it's a skeptic's journey into the CIA's Project Stargate. Fascinating guest, as you heard, and his book is amazing. So make sure you get that. I want to thank John again and Susan for being our special guests with us tonight. And everybody, we look forward to seeing you again next week. We'll be here live with you on Wednesday, 9 o'clock, following Kat Hobson's show, which is also a real treasure. Love to listen to her show. And we come in right after Kat. So make sure and tune in, and we look forward to it. And have a wonderful 11/11, everybody. Good night.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.